Good evening, everyone. First of all, can you hear me good? Is it, before I can start, my voice is clear to everyone? Okay, perfect. Thank you everyone for attending. My name is Navvar Şaban. I'm a non-resident researcher at ORSAM, specialized in the Levant, mainly in Syria, Iraq, and also in Iran. Also, I'm a conflict expert at Omran Center. I handle also similarity. There is similarity between ORSAM and Omran. So basically, I focus on the Levant area. Recently, I began since 2018 focusing more on the Iranian situation in Syria and in Iraq and how they are expanding in different aspects. So today, I had a lot of topics to talk about, but I wanted to talk about the main thing that everyone is speaking right now, or let's say that the hot topic. But of course, I'm gonna mention lots of things, but mainly I'm gonna focus about Idlib. The situation in Idlib, how it became like this right now, what's the possible scenarios for Idlib, and what's the possible outcome for any possible negotiation in the future, and the situation inside Idlib. The slides are just like to give you a visualization of what I'm talking about, but mainly I will talk about them, and it will be like simple, and I will give you more time to give your own question. So I think you can see the screen. I'm sharing like in two screens. Idlib had two main phases at the time being in this year, in 2019 and 20. It began, first of all, even before that, it was since the agreement, the first Russian-Turkish agreement for the 12 observation point. Those 12 observation points, that was the first ceasefire agreement in Idlib. So it included establishing 12 observation points from the Turkish side and promises from the Russian side to control the regime and the Iranian-backed militia. So basically, what happened is during the time, and we witnessed also lots of IDP wave from the south and from Ghouta and from different areas, there was violation from the regime side. It was obvious that these violations are not random. It serves something very specific, which is like destroying the first line of defense. One of the main conditions that the Russian intended and said that it's a must is to evacuate all heavy weaponry from the area, the de-escalation zone, and put it back 3 or 4 km to an area inside Idlib. And this has actually happened. So one of the main plan was to evacuate all line of defense from that area, push it back, and then began the violation from the regime side and even from the Russian warplane, hitting specific route, hitting specific area, trying to, in a way, prepare this area to any possible military operation. I'm not gonna talk a lot about these details that happened in this area, but then an actual military operation happened. It targeted areas, main areas, such as Khan Sheikhoun in the beginning. First of all, it was on the northern Hamas side, Kafr Zita, Latamna, all these areas. And then it was Khan Sheikhoun, then it was Sanjar, then it was Ma'arra, then it was Saratib. The question here, we have 12 observation points from the Turkish side. The Turkish side, before they enter in a big military scale, they had these points, and these points sometimes got targeted. These points, the regime was able to surround it. Why? Why exactly this happened? It's a very important point. These are observation points. They are not military points. Okay, they have military equipment, they have the military facility, but they are not capable of doing a military large-scale operation or strike back. They can sometimes strike back on a missile location, but they don't have the full military efficiency. That's why we saw lots of these points, exactly 8, got surrounded from the regime forces. Now the Turkish side decided to pull back this point. So one of the main thing is when people talk about this situation, the military operation that happened from the regime side, why there was no response from the Turkish side in the beginning. Basically, they had a 12 observation point. These 12 observation point had a main task only to report violation. The Turkish side, both the opposition and the Turkish side wanted this agreement to succeed. But deep inside, we know that this agreement will not succeed in that time. Plus, again, in the beginning of this military operation that began, the Russian had the first phase. They tried to advance. If you remember, they were like suffering in one village. Karnaz, Kafrimbuda, all these villages, they used to take it one day and lose it another day. Why? They had at that time lack of manpower on the ground. The second phase, they began totally something else, which is depending on some of the Iranian-backed militia. They pulled some of the Iranian-backed militia, plus also they were dependent on the Russian PMC. What do I mean by PMC? Russian private military security company, such as Vega, such as Wagner, such as Patriot, and more on. These companies, they are not considered a Russian military. They are private company under a contract with the Russian defense. These companies are registered either in Cyprus, in China, in Ukraine. So it's very difficult, or it's even impossible, to point out the finger. These are Russian forces. Even if they are Russian nationality, they are registered in a different company. They are private military security company under a contract. Some of these companies are even under a contract with the regime Ministry of Defense. So they are internationally, they are serving a contract from the regime. So that second phase. And the second phase, the attack increased, the rapid of the attack increased a lot. So basically, this is the map after the first agreement, after the 12 observation point agreement. So after the Russian started depending on some of the Iranian militia, why I say some? It's a very important point. I'm sorry I'm going through subject, but it's all connected. The Russian, at some certain time, some certain phase in some operations, such as Deir ez-Zor battle, they had the lack of manpower. The regime does not have the full capacity of manpower to secure a full desert, to secure Deir ez-Zor. So they had to depend on the Iranian-backed militia, either the local militia or the foreigner. Some of the local Iranian militia are now part of the regime army or the security forces, so it's very difficult to track them. But what happened there is, when these Iranian-backed militia entered Deir ez-Zor, they basically refused to go out. So now, these forces are located in Deir ez-Zor and also in Aleppo, also in Daraa, in different areas. But Deir ez-Zor is one of the biggest examples for the Iranian-backed militia presence. So the Russian saw that whenever they do an operation, they create some kind of an empty space. Let's say they are thinking like this. I'm just explaining to you how the Russian thought about Idlib. If they started an operation without with full capacity of the Iranian presence, there will be a space. Who will cover the space? The Russian knows that the regime is his forces spread out in different areas. So it's very difficult for the regime to cover this space. So they will be, it will be an easy target for the Iranian to participate. That's why the Russian, in the beginning of the operation, they wanted to reduce the presence of the Iranian-backed militia. That's why the operation was slow in the beginning. Once these forces participated and covered different ground, it became fast. I'm talking about now the mechanism of the offense, but it's very important also to talk about the mechanism of the defense from the opposition. I'm not gonna say that the opposition did everything in a perfect way. No, there was huge mistakes from the defense side of the opposition. There was conflict between different fronts. You have Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, you have the Liberation Front, which is part of the National Army. You have other extremists, such as Harras al-Din, such as Turkestan. And these forces, they have the international community look on them in a different way. So like a true story, the Turkestan Horas al-Din cannot operate in a front that Al-Jabha al-Wataniya operate. But also Al-Jabha al-Wataniya was not able to secure this because of some internal issue. So the defenses, the line of defense made it very like not easy, but in a way also it simplified the operation. The main task when the opposition forces saw that the battle is a lost battle, so they were playing on time. They were trying to gain more time to evacuate more people. The regime entered a lot of villages or cities. It was totally empty. That was the main goal of these from the opposition when they saw that a loss in this operation, that it will lead to a big loss. Something very important: the Turkish side, what they were doing at that time. At that time, we witnessed several direct hits for the Turkish soldier. The Turkish army, that was like a game changer. The big hit that was in Mahambal area next to Ariha, that was a game changer for the Turk. They started participating in this battle in a direct way, using drones, using artillery, long-range missile. And that was the way to draw the new map of Idlib, the new areas of control of Idlib, how it will change, how this area, how the Turkish side started like establishing new point to secure this location, to secure one of the main international road, which is the M4. At that time, M5 was a loss. By the way, the Turkish side and the opposition was able to recapture Saraqib at certain level. But here comes the part of negotiation that some of us intend or sometimes miss it. Negotiation in these kind of situations are very important. I'm gonna talk about, like, let's say that I'm a totally pro-opposition guy. I just want the regime to be pushed back from Idlib, and I don't care. I don't care how. I just wanted I want Saraqib to be recaptured. I want Khan Sheikhun to be recaptured. I want Ma'arat Naman to be for the opposition once again. There is always a cost. It's not easy to establish a military operation. You have behind you 4 million civilians. Logistical wise, are you capable of securing this area after capturing it? Do you have the proper air force? Do you think that the Turkish side will support you as an opposition with a proper air force? That will not happen at all, because it's rule between international like participation. It will lead to a massive disaster in the area. So Saraqib was a beginning of a negotiation phase that allowed the regime, with, in a way, supervision of the Russian, to secure the M5, all of the M5, and the Turkish side to secure all of the M4 and the area beneath the M4, which is a very important area. I will talk about it later on, Jabal al-Zawiya. Going on in the map, this map give an idea about, so that was, this is, after the operation, we ended up in this situation. At the time being, it's in a way stable. At the time being, in a way, it's fixed. But there was always attempts from the regime side to do some kind of test for the specific front. It's by the way, it's a very old mechanism of the regime. The regime always, in a way, in Latakia, in some of part of northern Homs, intend to send some like minor group of fighters, small. I'm not gonna say minor. I didn't mean minor as minor in age, like small group of fighter to test a specific front. And most of these fighters die because he basically does not care about his soldier. Then I was reading a question. I will read these questions. And then in a certain phase, they might start an operation. So basically what the regime is doing right now in some areas is like sending troops to die, to test the front. The Russian at the other side is again doing what they did in 2018, striking specific road around the M4, trying to cut the area from any possible like support if any operation happened. There was a request from the Russian to the Turkish side. They asked them to pull back all of their forces beneath the M4 and to establish them above the M4. The Russian, basically, they don't want the Turk to have heavy military equipment beneath the M4. Why? Beneath the M4, it's Jabal al-Zawiya, the mountain of al-Zawiya. It's a very high area. It's a very strategic area. Whoever controls it can control the surrounding. If the regime was able to capture the area with a simple sniper, the regime will be able to see Bab al-Hawa. So controlling Jabal al-Zawiya is a very strategic point. That's why the Turk made it very clear that they will never leave this area. And the opposition have a lot of like several heavy locations on that area. And here comes, after this, let's say, this agreement between the Russian and the Turk, the Russian decided to suspend the joint patrol on the M4. And they said that the reason behind that is that the Turk couldn't control the area from the terrorist presence. Surprisingly, these terrorists attack always in a specific time with a specific political environment. It's obvious that it's intended to happen at this time to affect a long-range plan. So at the same time, when the Russians said that, they began a very massive campaign, airstrike campaign. And it lasted for like a couple of weeks, and then basically it stopped. But it was a direct message from the Russian. And we saw this message also when the Russian warplane for the first time ever targeted area in Al-Bab and Jarablus. It was a like ongoing messages happening. Going back to the map that on the screen, this map shows the influence of like the main local actors in Idlib. See, if I want to talk about the actual local actors, if I want to divide them to different groups, it will take too much time. Because even in the opposition, you have different entities. Even in the regime, not all of them is the Syrian regime. Some of them are local Iranian-backed militia. Some of them, they have like loyalty to Tiger forces. Some of them are loyal to the Republican Guard. Some of them are loyal to the 4th Division. So it's complicated a lot. I'm trying always to, whenever I publish something, trying always to explain the different kind of like loyalty. But focusing on the opposition side, we see Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, we see the Liberation Front and Al-Jaysh al-Watani. We see also Hurras al-Din. Hurras al-Din, they are now in a bigger group alongside with Ansar al-Tawheed. They are a very complicated group, by the way. I'm just gonna talk about them right now because we started talking about the local forces. So in Idlib, when it comes to the opposition, you have Fath Batu Operation Room and you have Al-Fath al-Mubin Operation Room. Fath Batu Operation Room is Ansar Ansar or Ansar fighters, Hurras al-Din, Ansar al-Islam. Those are the main core, and it was also part of them Ansar al-Tawheed. Recently, Ansar al-Tawheed chose to leave this room, and it became only Ansar al-Islam, Hurras, Ansar fighter. But that doesn't mean that Ansar al-Tawheed is not coordinated with Al-Hurras. Surprisingly, whenever one of the members of Hurras al-Din was targeted by the US drone, he was always attending a meeting with one of Ansar al-Tawheed headquarters. Something very important about the mechanism of these factions. Why it's very difficult sometimes to track them. Why it's very difficult sometimes to hit them. They do not have an area of control. They have an area of presence. They do not have a specific HQ or headquarters or camp. They might have a camp for a month. They will change the location. They might conduct a meeting, let's say today in Adana. Tomorrow they will do the meeting in Saraqib. They operate in a very high stealth mode. It's difficult to track them. It's difficult to point finger on them. And by the way, this is creating a very fragile security situation in Idlib because these forces are part of Idlib right now. They are in Idlib. It's very dangerous to to point out them or to start beginning attacking them in a large-scale military operation room. And this is one of the reasons when someone talk about why the Turkish side / the National Army did not start until now any operation against Hurras al-Din or Ansar al-Tawheed or even Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. Why? These forces are in Idlib. They are around the 4 million civilians that are living there, and they are surrounded by the regime. Is it wise, military-wise, is it smart to start a military operation inside Idlib that will affect the security situation inside Idlib and will weaken all the front, and it will be like an open invitation for the regime to enter? That's it. It's very difficult to attack, to start a military operation, and eventually everyone knows, even the American knows that. Because if the American did not know that, we will witness different approach for Idlib. We do a lot of meeting with them. We hear them talking. They know that it's very difficult to contain and maintain these factions. They move a lot. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is totally different. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham are the one in control right now, / the Salvation government. They are doing the control. So if you started, let's say, I want to attack them, I want to destroy them, you will end up with a very unfortunate result that will create an empty space inside Idlib, and it will be an open invitation. Here we will jump again about Idlib, about Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, but in just one couple of minutes later on. So you have another operation room, which is Al-Fath al-Mubin, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, Al-Jabha al-Wataniya National Army, and Al-Izza Army. Al-Izza Army is part of, in a way, have always, he was the faction that don't want to be part of anyone, but also they want to work with everyone. Very important point. Why Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and why the National Army agreed to work with Hayat Tahrir al-Sham? They are registered as extremists. And a few days back, the American reminded everyone that there is a prize on Al-Jolani. It was, by the way, it wasn't something new. 5 years ago, the American issued a prize with like millions of dollars to whoever bring information about the Al-Jolani. So they intended to issue this or repost this prize because basically recently some of the American statement was misunderstood. James Jeffrey, in the beginning of 2020, he said that in a way, the Salvation government is doing a great job. This is what the journalist said, but he did not say that. He said that at the time being, the Salvation government is doing an administration part and trying to push any other people from working, which is the interim government. So the American found themselves with the new administration need to clarify that their location where they stand when it comes to Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. That's different. Why the Turk do not take or think about Hayat Tahrir al-Sham in the same way? Again, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is part of Idlib. They are controlling Idlib. They are inside Idlib. You cannot basically attack them. You cannot basically attack them in a large scale. They are like a pyramid. There is a different corner, like they are different pyramid, each pyramid. By the way, they are very complicated. Their structure inside is very complicated. And always there is issue between them when it comes to Syrian, non-Syrian, Al-Husba. It's an organization at the end. It's not a militia that want to destroy. It's an organization that want to survive. That's why when you talk about Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, it's not easy to say that they are just a faction. They have weapons. They are attacking the regime. No, they were able to if you want to go deep on their structure, they were able to adjust to a different area. They started as Jabhat al-Nusra, and then they became Fath al-Sham, and then they became Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. And in every phase, they do this kind of reintegrating or rebranding to, in a way, adapt to the international environment. And look at it, they succeed. Their last attempt was creating the Salvation government. They saw Hayat Tahrir al-Sham in that sense. They were smart in a way. They saw damage in the administration services that is provided by local council or some kind of like gaps when it comes to the services provided by the interim government. So they took advantage. They created the salvation government. At the beginning, it wasn't declared that the salvation government is part of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. But what's the difference between them and the interim government? The salvation government, military and security-wise. So the salvation government used to enter areas such as Atarib, and at the same time, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham used to support them military and security-wise. That's why salvation government was able to secure it and was able to pull all the power from the interim government to its location. That was one of the recent attempt from or method from Hayat Tahrir al-Sham to adapt to a new location, to a new environment. And this is what they are doing right now. They are trying to adapt with the new agreement, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. How? First of all, administration-wise, they know Hayat Tahrir al-Sham that the salvation government is providing services for the 4 million, and it's difficult to eliminate them. They know that as a salvation government. So they are always trying to work on this small limit. But when it comes to security and military-wise, they are offering themselves always as the only local force that is able to secure the area around the M4 and the force that will allow the agreement to continue. They had these messages to be sent to the National Army a couple of times. Whenever there is an operation against a joint patrol, the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham used to always the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham used to always present itself as the only force that will attack this Shishani group, attack this or secure that area. So they are trying to play on this agreement to, in a way, buy themselves more time to at least survive more. I'm just going to answer this question because it's related to what I'm talking about. No, I'm not saying it's impossible to end Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, but it's impossible to start an operation, military operation against Hayat Tahrir al-Sham at the time being. That's why it's possible to start surgical operation against Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. Again, going back to the pyramid, targeting the top of the pyramid in each pyramid as a surgical operation, especially when it comes to non-Syrian fighter. Non-Syrian fighter, they cannot operate without a leader. Once their leader is gone, they are gone. They will dismantle. So this is one of the main, or most, in my opinion at least, this is like the most appropriate approach to deal with Hayat Tahrir al-Sham military-wise. But again, how Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is surviving? Income. Okay, then you need to study their income. From where? Crossing border, internal crossing border, smuggling point, buying weapon, drugs, etc. Taxes from the opposition area, electricity, water. So you need to block these. Imagine if you block the smuggling point between that controlled by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. The regime himself is doing business with Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, and recently they announced that they will open Sarakib crossing border. So not always to destroy or to maintain Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, it doesn't have to be always military-wise. You can do it by targeting their ways of income. This is, even in my opinion, more efficient, because these kind of factions, I'm not going to say Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is an organization. To maintain their income, it's easy. Crossing border, internal crossing, smuggling point. One of the top, this is an information from Idlib. One of the top military, military weapon lords, that sell weapons and stuff like this are related to him in a way. Major kidnapping cells. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham say that they have no connection with them, but we were able to track some names. They are Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. It's a business for them. Everything is a business. So attack their business, target their business, put them in a position that they are not comfortable. They are now in their comfort zone. They are taking money. They are controlling the border. They are presenting themselves as the local force. They are, in my opinion, they are in a very good position for what they think. In their opinion, they think they are in a very good, safe position. And think about it. No one right now, even me, I don't want an operation against inside Idlib right now. Not from the regime side, not from the national army against Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, because what will happen to those 4 million? Will they go to Afrin? There is no capability. Will they go to Euphrates Shield? No. Will they go back to the regime side? No. Will they enter Turkey? It's impossible, especially during the pandemic. So the situation right now is to be stable. You must now stabilize the situation as much as I can. The Turks are doing, and that was the Russian, in a way, they were trying to do that. But a few weeks back, when the Russian intensive start attacking the area, it was a direct message also to show that they can play a sabotage role. I'm talking about Russia, Turkey in this area, but also in the beginning, I said the Iranian had a presence in that area. Where did Iran go? So Iran, they are located in Aleppo city. Their main power is in Aleppo and its southern countryside and eastern countryside. And they have an influence in the area, but they don't want to present their influence as a major thing inside this area. Why? Iran, a lot of international force or the international community point out Iran in different areas, Dar'a, Deir ez-Zor, some part of Homs. So Iran acted smart when it comes to this area. No, okay, we can operate in this area using our local entities, and we can play whatever role we want to play in a stealth mode, control specific stuff, damage specific deal, do a missile there, launch an artillery there, without saying that we are Iran. So we can operate freely. Sometimes information get loose and we see, for example, an Israeli raid on Sfera or Khanasir because they got an information about a possible Iranian movement in that area. But since the operation of Aleppo city, the Iranian always try to cover their presence in Aleppo and surrounding it. For example, southern Aleppo was one of the major location for the presence in that area, one of the major top presence. After and it had not only local militia, they had the Iraqi militia. So basically, what happened after the operation of Aleppo city is that the Iranian gave an order to all these militia to put down their flags, to integrate themselves, rebrand themselves as local forces, even inside Aleppo city. And the only time, 2 times only, we witnessed these flags to be raised again. One time, when I think in 2017, I think, or yeah, 17, when there was an IED attack in Iran and killed a couple of commander in parade, there was some kind of activity or a protest for Iranian-backed militia in Aleppo, and their flags was raised again, Zainabiyun, Badr Corps, Nujaba, etc. And also when Qasem Soleimani got killed, it was also at the same time, they raised their flag. 1 second, sorry. So at the same time when Qasem Soleimani got killed, these flags got raised. So what I'm trying to say is that Iran's still there. Iran's playing their role in that area in the way that served their interest. So it's because we are talking about full Idlib right now, but it's important for you guys to understand something about the different part of Syria. Every international force have its own goal. The Iranians, since 2000, when the Russian began the direct intervention in Syria, I think it was 23rd of September 2015, the Iranian knew that they need to change their plan, their goals. And now their goal is to stay in Syria. How to stay in Syria? We want to stay in Syria. So let's do something like that. By the way, they are very similar to Hayat Tahrir al-Sham in the way. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham always tried to rebrand itself. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham always try to integrate itself with the community, and this is what Iran is doing. Always trying to rebrand itself. Always try to integrate their forces in different regime militia or military institution or security. And recently they began like infiltrating the business community and the society. So that was one of the reasons that I told you that when talking about these forces and their military approach, security approach, it's something, it needs a full course. So I'm trying as much as I can to like give you as much as I can information in this 1 hour and then allow you to ask whatever you want. So I'm going through something that I was talking about right now, which is the question from Fatin about Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. I told her that one of the main thing is either surgical military operation or damaging its income sources. So in a quick way, one of the main income sources for Hayat Tahrir al-Sham are illegal crossing, which are the smuggling crossing. It smuggle everything, drugs, food, whatever. Right now, the regime have lack of foods, for example, oil, rice, and it's very common to see the UN rice is being sold in the regime side. It's smuggling. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham imposed its control through the border sector, all smuggling port to Turkey and also to the regime. Internal crossing with the regime during the operation that the regime recently did after they captured Khan Sheikhoun, Ma'arras, etc. All the internal crossing, they got closed. There was Al-Mansoura in Aleppo city, Morik in Hama, and Qal'at al-Madiq. They had the 3 different crossing, and also Abu Duhur, it was like more as it was open from the Russian to people who wanted to like do reconciliation with the regime. After the operation, everything got closed. 6 months ago, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham published that they will reopen Saraqib with the regime, crossing border. So the people protested. It was a big dilemma. And suddenly Hayat Tahrir al-Sham decided to postpone it. But now Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, with the pandemic, everything is closed. Everything is being more controlled. The border is more secure. They sensed the lack of money. Again, they published that they will open it. And this time, even if the people protested, they will open it. Because going back to my point, they felt the lack of money eating them from inside out. And they don't want that, because whenever organizations such as Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, without money, they cannot survive. Taxes, because they provide the services through the Salvation government, they do take taxes from people, and very high taxes. Financial investment, it's a jungle, just like any other area. Idlib, when Hayat Tahrir al-Sham talk about Idlib, they talk about Idlib as it's a country. So they have investors, they have money. You will be surprised, you guys will be surprised of how much some people in Idlib have money. Warlord. I'm a pro-opposition guy, to be honest with you, but I cannot tell you that it's all butterfly and rainbows inside Idlib. No, it's not. There is crime. There is warlords everywhere. Even inside Idlib, there is warlords. They always intend to take advantage of the common people. And these warlords have to make their business work. They have connection with Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, and that's why Hayat Tahrir al-Sham take advantage from these kind of investment. There is something called a door office. A door office, they don't have a name for it in English, a door, but as Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, but in a way, it's like in Turkish, I think, Sira office. So a door office is one of the main thing that Hayat take money from, which is like to organize all the trucks going inside Idlib from Bab al-Hawa. That's major money, too much money. They take a lot. There is some studies about how I would like to share it and send it to you in a way, but there is some studies that talk about how much money Hayat Tahrir al-Sham made in 2019 and 18 from the controlling the crossing border. Side information is some of these, when the smuggling of people was something very popular before the massive secure of the border before the pandemic, the smuggler used to take for each head, they used to consider it as head. For a man, $500. For a kid, it was $300. But so let's say a family from a man and a wife and 2 kids, they will pay $1,600. Before they enter to get to the smuggling point, they will be blocked by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham checkpoint. And this checkpoint will take from them $200 to allow them enter. And then the smuggler have to give 40% to Hayat Tahrir al-Sham to allow him to continue his work. So around $1,000 from this operation will go to Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. And it's one of, and minimum at that time, every day there was around like 20 operations in a daily basis. Let's say 10 every day. 10 multiplied by 1,000, $10,000 per day from just a checkpoint. One checkpoint. Imagine one checkpoint can make in daily basis at that time $10,000. We're talking about too much money. Don't be surprised. They are an organization able to buy weapons, able to provide services to the Salvation government. They have salaries, they have different stuff. If you want to go way deep on Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, you will be fascinated on how much money they had at that time. And then when you see that, you won't be surprised. That was one of, this is why they are still surviving until now. They have money, the money and the power. At a scenario like Idlib or a geographical location like Idlib, power don't come without money. Okay, let's face it, Hurras al-Din fighter are brutal. They came to die. But until now, they were not able to do this like a massive influence, such as Turkestan, a lot of examples. Without money, there is no power when it comes to war, unfortunately. So major incident that we talked about all these major incidents, but let's talk about it more detail. In January 2019 was the month that Hayat Tahrir al-Sham was able to secure the larger area of Idlib and present Salvation government to control administration-wide this area. August to 2019, the regime took Khan Sheikhoun. Feb 2020, the regime took control of all M5. March 2020, it was the Turkish-Russian agreement. So I talked about this, the local actor, and it's very, so I intended to talk about the opposition side before the regime side. I always, as I said, I love to provide you a good image about the disadvantage in the opposition and the advantage. Before I talk about the regime, you can say that, okay, you talked about Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, you talked about Hurras, you talked about weak defenses. Where is the advantage until now? Basically, the advantage is the surviving mechanism until now. This is a major advantage. Just put all these disadvantages that I talked about. Imagine people were able to survive, even when this advantage is being their daily life. So they are like having to deal with these kind of things on a daily basis, but they were able to survive. This is a major achievement for these forces. I believe in a better future for Idlib at that time and this time. I just want to be this area to be stabilized because we have the let's take things in a very slow way. We have the pandemic. This is one of the major threats that facing Idlib. By the way, now Idlib is the opposition area is one of the top areas with the infected cases inside Syria. Okay, the regime might be lying, but still we have until now, I think 15,000 cases in Idlib and in an area which is 400 km square. Just do the math, it's scary. And these infected cases are depending on the number of tests, and the number of tests are very limited. So that's why whenever you talk about, even when you talk about, you're asking about scenarios, possible scenarios, I can block the pandemic and tell you what was might happen if the pandemic did not happen. But at the time being, nothing will happen. Even the Russian, they don't want a new operation that will like open a new them. They don't have the capability or the willingness to run a new area. So the regime side, this map, I think, talk about itself. It gives you an idea about the location of the regime allies and forces in exactly Feb 2020. Why I say Feb 2020, they do a lot of movement, especially in that front. It's an active front. The Russians are putting their effort or their pressure on this front to in a way shape it the way they want. So there was a lot of movement in this area, but at least you can say 70 to 80%, these forces are the only forces surrounding Idlib from the regime side, and they move a lot. 4th Division, which is like loyal to Iran, regime army, there is that point is the National Defense Forces, local defense forces, Tiger forces, Hezbollah, Russian forces, PMCs, and the Iranian foreign militia. We talked about, because I mentioned these two names, I have to tell you something. I mentioned that around Idlib, there is National Defense Forces and local defense forces. You need to know the difference between these two. So in the beginning of the Syrian conflict, after the creating of some local militia, the Iranian had a vision to create something to make it part of the regime. And they created the National Defense Forces. They supported the National Defense Forces a lot. They used it also in part of Aleppo city. Then the Russian came. The Russian put pressure on the National Defense Force and the Iranian. The Russian, from the beginning, in a way, sensed the Iranian plan. They did not want Iran to expand military-wise when it comes to military structure. So these National Defense Forces became the request from the Iranian to make them part of the regime army got denied. And there was a law by the regime army to force all these people in the National Defense Forces to serve the army. So then there was another Iranian attempt in 2016, I think, yeah, to create the local defense forces. But this time they managed to put the local defense forces part of the Syrian army. So we have the local defense forces now is the full concern of the Iranian. It's very difficult. We all know, I know, the American knows, the Turk knows, everyone knows that the local defense forces, such as different faction, is connected to Iran. But when it comes to paper-wise, when it comes to documenting, when it comes to structure, they are part of the army. So that's why it's complicated. But here, after the National Defense Forces got neglected, their forces scattered in the ground. So again, the Russian came and they provided them with an opportunity to be part of the either the 5th Corps or the Tiger forces, but not in their militia situation. All these forces had to go through a training course with Vega, one of the Russian PMCs that I spoke about, and then join the army. Why the Russian intended and focused on that point? When you go look at the local defense forces, what the Iranian did is they gathered militia and they put them in that structure. But still, their militia way of thinking kept the one that control everything. So that's why when you go to, whenever you want to read about their resort, or in a way, try to monitor their resort for a week, and you will always see that there is a news of some of these forces, that militia that are part of the local defense forces, they fight with each other. So they are still warlord. What the Russians tried to do is, in a way, to organize them, these militia, national defense, to give them the military mentality and then put them part of the regime. But at the same time, they did not succeed, because you're talking about a country now from the regime side that have lack of discipline when it comes to military. So, and everyone knows that. But still, if you want to compare now the National Defense Forces with local defense forces, strength-wise, the local defense forces is much stronger. Armory, the local defense forces have less tanks from the National Defense Forces. Individuals, local defense forces is much higher numbers. Military structure, both of them, local defense forces is part of the army and have more power. The National Defense Forces is part of the 5th Corps and have less power. I just had about this because it's very important. The restricting approach about Idlib. Yani, let's now say that there is no pandemic. No one is putting the pandemic as a wall against their future way of thinking. The regime, when he wants to push for an operation against Idlib, there is like excuses. There is like these international point that he presented to the international community and saying, these are the reason why I need to do this operation, either to the Russian, to whoever. First of all, controlling Idlib and defeating jihadist group, it's always like this. There is jihadist extremists. We need to defeat them. They are a threat for the national security and the area surrounding it. The presence of military build-up force, including Al-Quds Brigade, they are building forces around Idlib. What else? It's a very important situation that if the pandemic did not happen, I was like expecting that also, by the way. Always, whenever there is a US election, the US become as a circle and start thinking only about their internal affair. And when Obama got re-elected, or when he first got elected, it's always go to the dates and see that the regime did something at that date. So before the pandemic, I really thought that the regime will try to do something during this date. But even though they did not start an operation, what they did is they increased their amount of shelling on Idlib, and the Russian participated in that. The regime, I added on the last one, the fragile internal security situation inside Idlib. Again, that's connected to the question that I got about Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and why not attacking it, because again, we don't want the situation to be more fragile. Something important, I believe it's important to mention, but it needs more analysis, is that the new relationship between the regime and some Arabic countries that are against the Turk will eventually play a major role. It's still difficult to point out the finger and say that you guys did that, or to be honest, UAE did that, Saudi did that. But I have a feeling that there might be a big role for these Arabic countries sometimes, especially with their vengeance against Turkey. There might, and we're seeing that approach being adapted by UAE mostly. One of the main examples is that UAE used to give every Ramadan food basket to the opposition area. This time they did not, and they gave it to Latakia. Actually, if it's going for Syrian, for Syrian, but that was not the intention for the Emirati. It was a political message. So these are the following are just basic map about Jabal al-Zawiya, about at that time what it was possible to start an operation from the regime side. These square, with dots, are the ones that are high on the ground. So they are the most point to be attacked first, and then going, yeah. I don't know if you can see the mouse. This is the area that is high, and the operation will go down from here up to here. So at that time, it was possible to start like an operation like that, especially that the regime began mobilizing forces to that area. But at the current time, no, there is no possible operation at this time, especially because of, we know that the Turkish part pulled back most of its surrounding observation point. They did not send it back to Turkey. These points are reallocated around the M4 and in the southern area of the M4. So it's obvious the Turkish side is not ready yet to evacuate this area. And this is like one of the major factors. And the same, it's just a graphic map for northern Latakia. Also, these kind of area won't be it's always for the regime because it's high, but it's difficult for the regime because of the location for it. And when it comes to airstrike, it's not efficient to start airstrikes on that area because it's mountain. The regime have advantage when it comes to Idlib, but there is also disadvantage if he wanted at that time to start operation. The regime loyalists, especially from the coastal area, got irritated a lot. You go see Damascus account, social media, they are doing parties, they are living their life. And at Latakia, when you go to any village, you only see picture of men, soldier men got killed. So they got tired from that being repeated over and over again. And their social media accounts started talking about that. Economic situation in the regime-held area, the corona, the intense Turkish presence in Idlib, the strategic target area, Jabal Zawi, stuff like that, the Russian-Turkish coordination. All these point together are, in a way, blocking any possible regime attempt by himself. Sometimes the regime, by the way, okay, he's supported by the Russian, but not always he's following the Russian order, by the way. He's always have like this small space that he intend to use, and he intend to put the Russian on the spot. And, okay, I started an operation, you cannot. You need to be part of it. And this happened in a couple of areas, by the way, in 2016, 17, and the Russians supported eventually the regime. But in Idlib, it's difficult to happen because of the thing that I mentioned. So possible scenario is that the area will stay the way it is. At this current rate, it's the most probable scenario. The second scenario is that the area will be lost, M4 will be lost. There is no intention from the regime side to go further more in Idlib, because once he take the M4 and Jabal Zawiya, he control everything. So why to take more area, to take more people that I have to provide services on, and I don't have the money, I don't have anything to provide for them. Let them be surrounded, and let's keep it for the future. But still, this scenario we're talking, I talked about even before the situation to be like that, COVID-19, economic situation, and so on. So just as a quick ending, I'm gonna give you what situation used to be in Syria and different. 2013, this was the location: green opposition, yellow SDF, red the regime. So that was in 2013. 2015, ISIS, it was the most expansion for ISIS. Of course, some of these areas are desert. It's not full black, but in a sense that it gives you an abstract situation. 2017, we witnessed operation against ISIS in different locations. And we end up now in 2020. So just once again, 2013, 15, 17, and 20. This is the area of the north, all the opposition area. Okay, there is another opposition area, which is a Tanaf, but it have different international coordination. So actually it's always difficult when we talk about it to include it with the rest of the opposition area. These are the opposition area until now. Idlib, you have Afrin, you have Chil, you have Nabal Salam area. Some of these, the star area is the military buildup. These black dots are the area of ISIS operating at the time being. My last map is just to give you the actual control. All these dots are location for civilian presence. So this is the actual control. So when you talk about Aleppo, you have a very large scale of empty areas. These empty areas are always been used, can be used by ISIS to operate. So at least I think this map speaks about itself. It's not very difficult. I really hope that I finished my hour. So I really hope that you enjoyed. I tried as much as I can to give you from different, talk about it from different areas. Unfortunately, I did not have time to talk about the South. It's very important. So you can now write me your question. There is another question that was about Al-Hol camp. I'm gonna like wait a couple of minutes if there is like more question, and then answer all of these questions, guys. So I think you can like write your question right now. Thank you. So like during that time, if anyone wants to write more question, I wanna, it's a very interesting question, considering Al-Hol camp and the very fact that the Syrian Kurds are releasing Daesh fighter. I question what is the behind from the political military views. So I did not talk about SDF, PYD, or the Eastern Front, but SDF, when they created Al-Hol camp, and they put the people, let's say people from Hajin in that camp. Not all of them were ISIS, by the way. Most of them are not ISIS. Why they did not put them under trial? Why they did not provide us with the correct number of? Because they wanted to use this as a benefit for them in any political future or any possible future in the ground. So basically, a few weeks back, they started releasing people from the Al-Hol camp. They are not ISIS, by the way. They are people. You have to go to the beginning. Not all of them were ISIS. Believe me. Whoever is ISIS and dangerous, he was kept in different prison, not in Al-Hol. Whoever was a danger threat as an ISIS member was not in Al-Hol. Al-Hol had some ISIS families, had some local member of ISIS, but not the one with like major threat. But at the same time, now Al-Hol as a camp, let's go back to the Al-Hol. Al-Hol camp witnessed different incidents: smuggling people, cases of rape, and murder inside the camp. The network who controlled Al-Hol camp from the SDF was a corrupted one, network, allowed smuggling, and we mentioned that to the American couple of times. You know, you need to focus on these camps. These camps are places for torture. And there was recently investigation opened from the American, and that investigation led to the release of some of the civilians. So the American says that these civilians, that this is like they are saying this off the record, that these civilians are being tracked and they will be like in a way questioned in the future, the civilian that got released from Al-Hol camp. But this is for ISIS. This is not the only problem. Al-Hol camp is not a problem. ISIS still operate in a larger scale in SDF area, in a very scary way. And unfortunately, the approach of SDF against some Arab is like feeding the vengeance, feeding the vendetta, feeding the angry feeling at the Arabic tribes and that area. And by the way, ISIS always, whenever there is a fragile in the security situation, they feed on that. That's why whenever we hear that, let's say SDF started a campaign against Sham. Few days back, few days in the future, you will see ISIS did 3 IED attack in Sham. It's all connected. SDF, with their random security approach, is pushing ISIS to emerge again in this area and in a more dangerous way. Why in a more dangerous way? Before, you knew that ISIS is located, let's say, in Deir ez-Zor. So you know you can attack Deir ez-Zor. I'm talking about, let's say, forces that attack ISIS. ISIS is located in Al-Raqqa. I can attack Al-Raqqa. But now ISIS are hidden cell. Where to attack? What SDF solution for that is to do a larger security campaign. Just this week, in a village in Deir ez-Zor, they arrested 25 people, among them 14 years old. 3 of them, they were under 15. So their solution, SDF, is for get rid of these security cells, for these hidden cells of ISIS, is to do a random security and arrest all of them, and that's it. By the way, and also people say always that there is no old vengeance between Kurd and Arab. No, there is. There is something very important. Some of the SDF members until now, when they arrest Arab, they will tell them that you used to be part of al-Nusra, the one that came to Hasaka in 2013. You used to be part of Deir ez-Zor. Something very similar. Look at the prices in Al-Raqqa, which is an Arab majority area, and the prices on Amud. I will give you a very small example. The 1 liter of benzene in Amuda is being sold for 350 Syrian pound. The 1 liter for benzene in Al-Raqqa is being sold for 1,300. And both of them are under the control of the SDF. Why? Another small example. People might say that it's the transportation. Another small example. 1 kilo of chicken with their bone, it's being sold in Amuda for 3,000 Syrian pound. It's being sold in Al-Raqqa for 6,000. Services is different. So I'm sorry I went off the road of the question, but I'm trying to prove a point that the random security measures from SDF and the random administration services provided from the SDF is pushing the whole area to have more vengeance, to have more anger that might be used by ISIS hidden cell to create more destruction in the area. And let's face it, all the area of control are connected. ISIS can operate in different areas, and this is what they are doing right now. Sometimes you hear about ISIS Operation Al Bab, and basically the last thing we need right now is ISIS version 2. Yeah, about the presentation, yeah, yes, you can get it. I just need to fix a little bit of the map, because basically it was, I did it yesterday. So let me fix some stuff, make it more clear, and I will send it to you. Do we have any more questions? So I guess what is the reason that all of these forces tried to build their presence in Idlib? So basically, no, they are not the forces. They tried to build their presence in Idlib. Basically, they were pushed to be in Idlib. Going back, let's say in 2016, the Russian did an agreement with the opposition called the 5 escalation zone in Syria that included Daraa, Ghouta, Kalamoun, Northern Homs, and Idlib. So the agreement is to prevent any military operation in this area because it has civilian. That was the initial agreement. Then the Russian began this violating this agreement area by area. Ghouta, Daraa, Northern Homs, all of these areas got attacked by a military operation from 2016 until 2018. And all the people inside it, faction, different area, were pushed to be in Idlib, the last area. Why Idlib? Why they were not able to do the same in Idlib? Because Idlib had an international supporter, which is Turkey, that prevented a large-scale operation. People say, okay, Turkey, oh, they love the Syrians so much, that's why they did that. It's not only that. Turkey, at the end, they want to secure its land. If a military operation happened, it will eventually lead to a national security problem inside Turkey. So basically, that's why when you look at Idlib, you see people from Homs, you see people from Daraa, you see people from Raqqa, you see faction from there, you see faction from here. They don't have a B plan, by the way. This is their last area of control, and this was the plan of the Russia from the beginning. Put everyone we don't want inside Idlib, and then in a very slow rhythm, we will decide what to do with them. The future regarding the returnees and the call from Bashar, how this impacted? It will see political wise, when it comes to the regime, it's not connected to any possible military operation on the ground. It's always, but sometimes we used to hear the regime saying that Bashar al-Assad used to say that there are no barrel bombs are being deployed in Syria. And at the same time, at the same moment, there was an attack on Idlib. So basically the regime is, the regime with the said Bashar al-Assad trying to push and to clarify that they want people to return to Syria. And that was the Russian message since 2018. Even, let's say they started to return to Idlib, and there was like statement from the opposition, and no, people in Idlib are people are getting back from Turkey to Idlib. That will not stop the regime. Going back to the advantage point that I spoke about, the regime always have like these 5 fixed points to attack Idlib. It will never change. I don't care about the political environment. We don't care about anything. I have, as a regime, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These points are my reason to attack Idlib, and he knows that these points will never change. So he always have an excuse to attack Idlib. Thank you. I guess there is no more question. I think we can wrap it up. Thank you so much.